Hello, everyone, and welcome to Greyhammer. Today, we're going to be talking about the Steggadon list and how you can make it work in 4th edition. There's been a lot of things that have made it a bit more difficult to do, kind of a Steggadon heavy list in Age of Sigmar, but I think I found a kind of way that can make it work, so we'll get into that in a second. If you like this kind of content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We're almost to 100 subscribers, and love to see us get there soon. So the Triceratops is one of the most well-known dinosaurs that has ever existed, being a main attraction featured in movies like Jurassic Park and a lot of people's favorite dinosaurs. But its main carnivore is the Tyrannosaurus Rex, an even more popularly known animal that was massive. How do you bring those into Age of Sigmar? Well, you need a Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, and then you can have the Stegodon as your troop choice. So let's get into this list and see how it works together, because it's changed a little bit. So for this regiment, we're going to go with the Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur as your general, and then 3 units of Stegodons for a total of 990 points. But why are we not doing a Skink Chief on Stegodon? Because he can only have one monster in his regiment. It kind of sucks. Really makes it not ideal for making a Stegodon list, because you'd want your Stegodon Chief with your Stegodons, but you can't really make it work. I really don't understand why they did this, but you can still make it work with the Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. It gives you a strong monster option as well, so it kind of keeps some of the theme. So for Asterisms, this one's probably you're going Itzel the Tamer. Almost assuredly. Sotek the Deliverer could also be good. But Itzel the Tamer means your companion weapons. That means all of your monster attacks will have crit 2 hits. Note it does not say melee companion weapons. So any ranged companion weapons you may have, which you won't in this list, but things like a Spawn of Chotek could do that as well. And Sotek just gives you +2 to your movement. So Sotek, it might be easier for you to get because the enemy general is in combat or has been destroyed by the 3rd battle round, whereas Itzel the Tamers, you have to have destroyed 3 or more enemy units. So it might be easier to do Sotek the Deliverer at the start and then do Itzel the Tamer at the last. But you could do Itzel the Tamer, then take Sotek the Deliverer, and that would mean you could get some extra movement towards the end of the game to go grab objectives, which is one of the weaknesses of this list. You're going to go the Thunderquake Star Host because it adds 2 to the health of all of your monsters, of which everything in here is a monster, so 2 to the health of everything can be pretty strong. Unfortunately, we do not have the rules that we had in the old edition for reducing damage intaken by 1 for these guys, so you can't make them super tanky. It's a little frustrating because it was a really interesting ability, in my opinion, but, you know. For your general, you're going to take Reptilian Cunning. If your Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur has charge, a friendly unit wholly within 12. If a friendly unit wholly within 12 uses the all-out attack, no command points are spent. It means you can spend your command points to do other things. And then you'll just, in any hero phase, heal D3 to your Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. Pretty simple, but useful to give your Carnosaur a little bit more staying power. And let's get into the War Scrolls. Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur has 14 health. That goes up to 16. 10 move. It could go up to 12 move with the Sotek. 4 up save and control 5. He's got a ranged weapon with the Sunbolt Gauntlet with a 12-inch range, D6 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend of 1 and damage 1, and can shoot in combat. So you do get to keep that damage possibilities even while you're shredding through enemies in combat, which is good. The Sunstone Spear is 5 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1 and 2 damage, and you get an extra damage on the charge, so 3 damage on the charge. And then the Carnosaurus Clawed Forelimbs, 4 attacks, 4s to hit, 2s to wound, rend 1, 3 damage is companion, so you could get that crit 2 hits. So any 6s on those 2 hit rolls would be 2 wound or 2 hits, which if you wound on the 2 up and you go through their armor, you could get 6 damage instead of 3, so it can be very strong force multiplier there. The massive jaws, 3 attacks, 4s and 2s, rend 2, 3 damage. Same thing is a companion weapon, so can be very useful for those attacks into enemies with those companion 2 hits. So you can really juice this guy up. While this unit has 10 or more damage points, it only gets 2 attacks instead of 3 attacks with its jaws. Not the worst bracketing in the world. Passive, unfortunately, it affects Saurus, so we won't even read that because it doesn't matter for this one. And then Terror, you subtract 2 from control scores of enemy units while they're in combat with this unit. So you can kind of neutralize a bit of the difficulty with control in this list. And then Blood Frenzy, once per turn in a combat phase, is Rampage ability. If this unit is in combat with a damaged enemy monster, roll a dice. On a 3-up, this unit has strike first for the rest of the turn. So if you were to shoot down an enemy monster, or basically if you do any shooting into the enemy monster and do any damage, this guy can get strike first, which can make your army significantly easier, because you could get this guy and then a Stegodon to go right after him, which is really strong and really cool ability. The Stegodons, I'm going to take them with the Sky Street Bow. There's a decent argument for Sunfire Throwers now, but I just like the bows at an 18-inch range, can put some shots downrange and get you that rampage ability on your Carnosaur being a possibility. So at 18-inch range, 3 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1, 2 damage, and is anti-monster, so it's rend 2 against monsters. Sunfire Throwers are your other option with a 10-inch range, 2d6 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, no rend, 1 damage. But it is anti-infantry and crit of 2 hits, so any 6s on those attacks are 2 hits, and it's rend 1 against infantry. The Handler's Meteoric Javelins is 12 attacks, or 12-inch range, 6 attacks, 4s to hit, 4s to wound, no rend, 1 damage, but is shoot in combat. And then the Stegodon with Horns and Jaws in melee is 6 attacks, 4s to hit, 2s to wound, rend 1, 2 damage, does an extra damage on the charge. You would again get those crit 2 hits. So you could do some decent damage with these guys, not as much as you used to be able to, but this kind of can come into the Unstoppable Stampede, which is unfortunately a rampage ability now. So you'd only get to use this once, unless I'm mistaken on the rampage rules. Let me know in the comments. So only one of them would get to do this. So it's maybe not as good an idea to charge them all in at once. Keep the other 2 as shooting batteries until this one can get its first round in combat, and then charge the others in. But it's in any charge phase. If this unit charged this phase, so you could do countercharge for this as well. Pick an enemy infantry unit in combat with it to be the target. Inflict D3 mortal damage on the target, so gets a little bit of mortal damage. Then this unit can move 2d6. This target can pass through models in the target unit, but must end the movement in combat. So you can get out of combat with the unit you're in and into a different unit. But you do have to end that move in combat. This can be really effective at getting into the back line, into like an archer's unit or a hero's unit, where that extra damage on the charge will be really useful. It does only have 4 attacks once it has taken 10 damage, but those 14, I don't remember if that 14 health goes up to 6, and then that 8-inch move can go up to 10, and then the 4-up save, so pretty decent armor. Let's get into kind of how you're going to use this army list. You use the Source Old Blood to take out enemy heroes and monsters. This is pretty standard, especially if you're taking the Sotek the Deliverer Asterism. You want to get that enemy general dead as quickly as possible. And if your enemy general is a monster, your guy's a little bit better at facing monsters. So try and Alpha Strike those heroes and monsters. Stegodons you use to weaken down foes from range and then hammer into enemy formation. I think a great shooting target for them would be enemy heroes and then other monsters, because you can get that extra rend against monsters, and sometimes heroes will be considered monsters like Kragnos or whatever. You can also use those Steggadons, like we said before, to get into the backline, disrupt enemy formations with like attacking archers or attacking your weaker support characters. And with a 4-up save, they have lost some of their survivability that they had in the past, but they are still pretty decently survivable. Though Rend being a bigger thing in this edition, even though they say they've reduced Rend, I don't think they have. Um, that 4-up save can go away pretty quickly. But they can be very useful, especially at range. I think Stegodon's range attacks are really, really strong. And realistically, using them as like a shooting artillery list works pretty well. Uh, they're an artillery list that can charge into combat. You may not even want to rush into combat. You use them to just kind of pick your opponents at ranged and then make them come to you, and then you charge them, and you do extra damage on that charge. So that's kind of how I think you should use this list. Let me know if you're excited about this list. I think I've got one more list before we go to some 2,000 point lists, which I think will be more interesting. We'll be rebuilding some of these lists that we've already created into some 2,000 points lists, see how we can kind of synergize a little bit more. I think 1,000 points is really fun because you kind of have to figure out a way to make a coherent list, but with 2,000 points, you kind of can do way more synergy and have a lot more options of what you can do. But let me know in the comments if you liked this. Please subscribe. Again, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers, and we'll have a big live stream. So go vote in my community tab to see what kind of video games you'd like me to be streaming for that marathon stream. But we're only 4 away, so please subscribe. It would be really, really helpful. But comments and likes are also very, very appreciated, especially comments. I really enjoy responding to those. I'll see y'all in the next episode, and goodbye.